Hello and welcome to That Nerd Thing, where we uncover the magical impact that fandoms have on our lives. I'm Morgan, and today I am so excited because when I actually told my husband about today's guest and where she works, he was like, "What, really?" Because it's a website that he loves. Loves. So I am so excited to introduce Briana Lawrence, the senior feature editor over at Crunchyroll. Hi, Briana. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, nice to chat with you. Also, hello to your husband.
Yeah. So can you tell listeners a little bit about what Crunchyroll is?
Crunchyroll is an anime streaming service. I work on the news team side of things, so I'm on the website that has your announcements, anime quizzes, deep dives, things like that. I work with a team of amazing writers who send in features, and I get to edit them and try not to get super emotional when they write things that that touch my heart and stuff like that. But yeah, that's what I do over there. It's super fun. It's a job I never expected to have in my lifetime as a longtime anime fan, manga reader, and all that, because back when I started, it was still very new, so I just assumed it would be out of my life eventually. And now I'm working in it, so it's that's my younger self would be very happy.
I know. It's so cool. It's you see these websites, you read these books, you watch these movies, and you don't realize, wait a second, there's people who work on these things behind the scenes, and now you're doing it.
Yeah, it never occurred to me because I got into anime when I was 10, and that was back in the 90s. And it never occurred to me that there were people putting this all together. It was just on. It was all right, cool.
Yeah.
But I never, even with the voice acting and everything, it never occurs to me. There's people talking. I had no idea until I got older. And there's a whole world of people who are just as passionate about anime and manga and stuff, who put it together and present it to other people and communities and fandoms and all that. So yeah, it's exciting. It's super fun.
So cool. And you're also an author, right?
I am. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to just mention a little bit about your books and what you've written?
Yeah. Currently I have 2 books that came out. 1 book that came out this year and one that's coming out next month.
Cool.
The one that came out in January is Fantasy Pen World. It's a middle grade book that's about a group of kids who get a set of magical enamel pens that give them superpowers. Because I collect enamel pens. I didn't realize I did until I realized I had enough to put on a board. And I was I guess I am a pen collector. I don't know when that happened, but that's part of my life now. And then the book that comes out next month is The Essential Guide to Manga. So it's a manga recommendation book, but also it goes into the history of manga, what it was when it first came to the US, different recommendations that I personally love that I would love people to read. And it highlights that manga is full of different genres and just all sorts of amazing stories. And it's not just one type of story. Pretty much any genre of fiction or nonfiction that you love is in manga somewhere.
Yeah, cool. So you have some books coming out that really relate to who you are.
Yeah,
Amazing.
which is also another part of my, I've always wanted to be a writer. I've always imagined writing. That's all I've ever wanted to do since I was a kid. I just didn't realize there was a pop culture writing thing you could do. So that was brand new to me while I was growing up. But I always wanted to write stories and tell stories. That's always been the goal.
Yeah, stories are magical.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I might be biased as an author, but I agree.
Are you ready to jump into your nerdy identity?
Yes, I am.
All right. What is the first thing that you were nerdy about?
I was thinking about this because I think there's a couple different answers. Because there's the stuff that I was nerdy about when I was aware that it was a fandom. Mm-hmm. And then the stuff I was into before I knew what fandom was. So when I didn't know what fandom was, I was into Power Rangers.
Yeah.
Power Rangers is probably the very first thing I actively shared with other people. My friends and I would go to the park and pretend to be Power Rangers. We would each pick a ranger, and we would each come up with stories and pretend we were transforming and stuff like that. But I didn't know what fandom was back then. I was just like, we're just going to the park and playing Power Rangers. And I think we also played like Bucky O'Hare and stuff like that. Pretty much all the stuff we loved on TV and like the video games we played and stuff. Like I really liked like Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, Super Mario Brothers and stuff like that. But I didn't know that there was like a term for what we were doing. We were just doing it. And then when I got into anime and manga later and like the internet became a thing, I discovered like fan communities. And so that fandom was Gundam Wing. And that was when I started writing fan fiction and stuff with Gundam Wing. And that's when I discovered there was a thing called fan fiction. And then I realized I'd been writing it in my notebook before I knew there was a word for it. I used to write Dragon Ball Z fanfic.
Oh, I love
back in the
that.
day.
Oh my gosh. You wrote it in your notebook? That's so cute.
I wrote it in my notebook and I passed it around to my classmates. Like I didn't care. I was like, I'm super excited. You're going to read this thing. And then later when I discovered, like when the internet started to like take off, I found like websites for Gundam Wing and I didn't realize it was fandom. I thought it was actually legit information because it was a line. I was like, oh, this is true. And they're like, no. Those are fans coming up with things. And that's when I discovered words like fan fiction. And so I would think my first fandom was probably like Power Rangers.
Yeah.
And then the first unaware fandom, then the first fandom where I knew what a fandom was definitely Gundam Wing. That was there for years. I was in that fandom for a long time. It was great.
I've never heard of it. And then a few weeks ago, I had a guest on the show. He's a horror author. His name is Eric Otero. And when he emailed me to be on the show, he was like, I want to talk about Gundam. And he he had so much stuff to say about it on the show. So you two might want to connect, but
no kidding.
Yeah.
Gundam was because that was when Toonami happened, and Toonami had like their afternoon block, and then they had the nighttime block that was like uncensored.
Oh,
and so for Gundam Wing, that meant they could say the word like damn and hell, and I was like, oh my god, like because they would censor that out. I was like, wow, he actually said kill instead of destroy, and I think that was a lot of
that's interesting.
experience for Gundam fans. Like we were like, oh wow, it's super like edgy because they're actually saying the words. And because I would watch it twice. I watched the like afternoon showing that was censored, then I would stay up late and watch it wasn't super, it was like 11 p.m. or something like that. Then I would watch the uncensored, uncut.
That's so interesting. I was a Nickelodeon watcher when I was younger.
Me too.
Yeah.
But again, I didn't know what fandom was. I was just like, I really like Doug and Rugrats.
Oh, yeah.
But I love Carissa Explains It All, but I don't know what like fandom is. I just watch it.
Yeah.
And other people like it too. And that's about as far as that went. I didn't realize there was like communities and people coming together to discuss fandom and stuff.
Yeah. What is your favorite nerdy thing?
Oh my gosh. So all-time favorite nerdy thing. I'm trying to narrow it down. I guess I don't have to narrow it down. But I think, and this probably is going to leak into another question later, but I think fan fiction's my favorite nerdy thing of all time.
Yeah.
I used to write a lot of fan fiction. Now I just read it because I don't have time to write it anymore. But fan fiction was the first space where I was around openly queer people. So they were all open about it and very positive about it. And that was like the first space where I had that moment.
Yeah.
And so fan fiction is a huge part of my identity, I feel, because I had no idea there were spaces that would talk about it. And when I was like, I got introduced to fan fiction and like the queer people in that community before I had come out. Mm-hmm. So since I had that space when I finally did come out, I mean, I did worry about it, but I was also like, oh, but it's like the people in the circle who are open about their identity. So I guess it's kind of similar to them as well. So I'm not super alone about it.
Yeah.
And I ended up meeting my wife through like the Gundam Wing fanfic group we were in the early 2000s.
Oh, that's so cute.
So it's like fan fiction's like my favorite. And even if I don't write it anymore, I will find myself on social media reading people's like threads and reading their fics and stuff still to this day. For whatever fandom I'm in, I'm always like reading a fic for that fandom somewhere. And it's always changing. It changes with each anime season. I feel like I get like a new passion, but without fail, I'm always like, there's the fic or there's like the fan art, which I also love dearly. But yeah, I think my favorite. I was trying to decide because like I love video games. That's another like favorite of mine. But I
Yeah.
think hands down fanfic is like the thing. And also like I met really great people through the communities. I ended up writing a lot more, which helped nourish my current situation as a writer because I went through a period where I had stopped writing and I was like, I'm just gonna write fic for fun. And by writing fic so much, I realized I really like writing, so I should go back to writing, and that's what I do now. So,
Wow.
and I used to use fic in college to like practice. Like I would write fics to like practice the stuff I was learning in like my writing classes. And my muses were always willing to write fic, but writing like actual stories for like class assignments, they were like, I don't know, I don't want to do that. Go back to writing a fic. And so I would use the fics to like practice like any like you should practice like how you write descriptions and like do these things in writing. So I would use fics to like put that stuff in there, and I could actually notice a change over time.
That's so amazing. So fan fiction really has impacted so much of your life.
Yeah.
You know, so many of the guests on my show have mentioned fan fiction, and I'm kind of wondering, like, when did fan fiction start? I'm curious about the history of it.
So I sat on a panel with a woman years ago, and she was talking about fanfic, and like, by definition, it's writing a different interpretation to like an existing property. She said something like Paradise Lost is technically fanfic of the Bible. And I was like, oh my God. And she was like, yeah, like fanfic is basically someone writing a different version of another story. And so if you think about it like that, fanfic is everywhere.
That's
And she's like,
true.
you can look at a bunch of different stories and you're like, technically this is like a reinterpretation of this story. So by definition, it's fanfic. And I was like, you have blown my mind today because I had never thought about that until she had brought it up in a panel because it was a fan fiction panel. She was like, there's fanfic all over the place. We read a lot of stories and you're like, this was technically a reworking of this. And it's like, oh, I guess that does make it a fanfic. So I
Yeah.
guess fanfic has been around forever.
And I only like recently realized that there's some fanfic that has been turned into actual published books. They just changed the names of the characters. I thought that was so
Yeah.
fascinating. I was like, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I agree.
What are you currently nerdy about?
Currently, and I'm fighting myself about it. So
Ooh, I'm excited.
So they released the early access to Hades 2, and I love the game Hades a lot. I got into it super late. So when I got into it, it was already available on console. So I was like, I'm just gonna play it, and it's fantastic. It's so good. And they're like, the early access is out. I don't have the right type of PC to play it, and they're like, well, there's this thing. There's a Steam Deck, so it's basically a little console where you could play the game. And I'm like, I don't need to buy one. But I really want to play Hades 2. I want to play it so bad. And they released like the art of the characters, and it's like this cool reinterpretation of European mythology, which was the original Hades game. And I'm just like, don't buy a Steam Deck. You don't need to buy a Steam. But even if I can't, I'm not playing it yet. I'm looking at every post and like everybody's reactions to it and like video of it. I'm just like consuming all of it, even if I don't have it yet. And I'm like, I just know I'm gonna sink in and get a Steam Deck so I can play Hades 2.
I know.
So that's like the fandom thing I'm into that I don't have access to.
Yeah.
Which makes me, and I'm fighting myself. It's like I don't. Do I need a Steam Deck for one game? And I'm like, well, then you'll spiral and get like more games. So technically,
Yeah. I've just heard great things about it.
it's like, oh, and I have a nerdy wife as well. So she's like, I don't know why you're fighting with your you can just get the Steam Deck. I'm like, oh, her only caveat is like, only if you can hook it up to the TV so I can watch. That is the only rule in our house. She wants to watch me play the games. But I'm super into Hades too. That's the one thing I'm not, that I can't have. I guess the fandom thing I'm into that I do have access to. There's an anime series out right now, and I really, really love it a lot. It's called Windbreaker. And I love like delinquent stories in anime because they always have like the the delinquent character who looks like he's super hard and doesn't care about anybody, but he's actually like the most caring person in the world. He's just like, he only cares about a select few people and he always has their back. And it's great. And I've always loved it since like Yu Yu Hakusho. But Windbreaker kind of flips it a little, because instead of it having like a protagonist who nobody likes, it's a protagonist that everybody likes, because he goes to a town where everybody likes delinquents. Because all the delinquents in town actually banded together to help the people. So they repair the town, they protect them from the actual bad gangs that show up, and they like, when they spray graffiti, they clean it. They help people with their groceries. They protect everybody. So when he shows up, they're like, "Oh, you're a delinquent. That's great. We love delinquents around here." And he's super on guard because he's used to people counting him out immediately. And so now he's around people who respect him, and he doesn't know what to do, because he was ready to like fight everybody, but everybody likes him. So he's like, I don't know how to deal with that. I don't know how to deal with actually getting compliments. And you end up following his story and the people he meets. And it's this whole thing of like, we should just like come together and help people. And he's starting to realize that, well, slowly, very slowly, because he's in denial, but he's starting to realize that maybe working with people is good, and maybe there are people out there who will actually like him for who he is. And he gets it, and then he gets flustered about it, and then he denies it. So he's very like, no, I don't want friends, but he keeps hanging around them and like helping them.
Can't fight those human instincts of wanting connection.
Exactly. And it's really good. It's well animated, and I'm gonna end up reading the manga to it when the season's done. But that's like a weekly watch. We have like our weekly watches. Oh my god, I can't believe I forgot to mention. I guess the other fandom thing I'm into that's not anime or manga, I just finished X-Men 97.
Oh yeah, a lot of people are loving that.
Oh my god, it was so good. I remember I have the DVDs from the original series still. And when they announced 97, I was interested because I thought it was cool that they were picking up where the original left off. And so I was like, what are they going to do with this? And it is so good. And you can tell it's by people who love X-Men.
That's so important.
It is. Like, you can tell that the people creating it love the material. And there's so many cool little, like, Easter eggs to other X-Men properties. Like, and fans have pointed it out, which is like my favorite thing about fandom is watching fans find the little nuggets that show that like the creators love fandom. Because I see posts that's like, that's from Marvel versus Capcom, like the move they're doing, and I'm like, oh my god, it is. And also seeing like the fandom who are like big comic book nerds who actually know like, this is from this story or this issue, because I'm not super comic book savvy, but I love watching like the movies and the cartoons and stuff. And so I really love seeing like fans being able, like, I have friends who are super into the comics. So when they finally watched it, I looked at our group chat and they're like, that's from like this issue and this issue, and it looks like they're building up to this thing that happens. And it's so fun like watching their reaction now that they're caught up on it. But it was amazing. It was way better than I expected. And there's genuine moments where I like got teary-eyed, like I got super sad, and it fleshes out characters in a great way. Magneto is phenomenal in this cartoon, and it's also interesting watching X-Men. Like the first time I watched it, I was like, 10 years old. I was very young. Now I'm like 40 and I'm watching X-Men and I'm like, oh, I really understand these feelings way better now because I'm an adult who's lived a life. So I understand now where like Magneto's coming from. Like I get it because I've felt that now. Like I've been through that.
Yeah.
Like I know those emotions that like they feel when people are like being hard on them just because they're different. And it's like it was there a little bit as a kid, but as an adult who's had like 30 years after the fact, it's like, yeah, I feel you, man. I get it. And so just seeing that and seeing the reception to it too, like seeing so many people love it, which is, like I said, my favorite part of fandom is watching fans come together and love a thing and have like, here's my deep dive, here's my theories, here's my fan art, here's my take, here's what I think this is gonna do. And I just love reading and being part of all of that. But yeah, X-Men 97, fantastic. That was a Wednesday watch all the time, and my mom started watching it, so we would talk, and she waited for a bit to watch. And I was like, let me know when you get to this episode and then call me. And then she would watch it and she'd call me and then she's like, ah! And I'm like, yeah, I know.
You should definitely check out my friends over at the Vigilante Vibes podcast. They also have a Facebook group called Mediaverse Comics Unwrapped, and it's all about like Marvel, and they enforce like non-toxicity, all positivity. They're really, really great.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the cartoons like this are what makes me want to go and grab the comics. Like the last time I felt that was Spider-Verse. I was like, now I want to go grab Spider-Man comic books and just start reading them. But where do I start? There's so many. But yeah, X-Men was our Wednesday night watch.
Yeah.
And then we watch Windbreaker. We watch My Hero Academia, Black Butler. There's so much we watch. Like there's a current anime like Tadaima Okari, which is two husbands and their baby just living a life, and it's adorable. So we have our weeknight watches, and then we also have cozy game night.
Oh.
So my wife is currently playing, I think it's called like Coral Island or something on Xbox, and it's just one of those cozy games where you farm and fish and stuff like that.
Cozy game night.
Yes. And then to match that energy, I actually rebooted up my Animal Crossing, which I have not played in like a year. But I was like, I'm going to go back and play because I just feel like decorating houses. so I sit on the couch and play Animal Crossing on my Switch, and then she plays her cozy game on the Xbox. And unless if I'm playing something like Vampire Survivor or something, but we have enforced like, it's just going to be a cozy night, and so we just sit down and play games together that are comfortable and nice.
What is the most underrated nerdy thing about you? I almost wonder, is it the cozy game nights?
I feel like at this point people know I'm into cozy stuff. It took me a while because I still love like, you know, I play all sorts of video games, and it took me a while to realize the niceness of cozy games. It took till like 2020 for obvious world issue reasons, and I needed something comfortable, and now I'm in this spiral of Animal Crossing and Unpacked and all these nice cozy comfortable games, or finding the like nice warm moments in hard games. God of War has this really nice father-son story going on, and I just latched onto that. But I feel like people now know that like I'm a cozy person. I don't know, the most underrated thing might be like, and this hasn't happened in a while, but I really love like rhythm games. I was thinking about like a game that every time I see a post that's like, what's a game that needs to come back? And I'm always like, Bust a Groove. It's this cool rhythm music game from the 90s that was on PlayStation. But I love music games like that. Like we play a lot of Beat Saber in our house. Cool. We download all the sound packs and we just play them, and that's like our little game night thing too. It's just more work because you have to hook up the VR and stuff. But I love music games a whole lot. That might be like one thing people don't know. But I think they're kind of underrated because they don't happen as much anymore. We used to have stuff like Dance Dance Revolution.
Yeah. Oh, I loved like that.
I did too. I was so sad because I live in Minnesota, so we had the Mall of America, and one of the arcades in the like amusement park area had a DDR machine, and then they took it out, and I was so sad because I'm like, I can't find a DDR machine anywhere in the city, and I'm like, I really miss playing games like that because they were so fun, but I feel like they don't happen as much as they used to, those fun interactive music games, and I miss them, and I wish they would come back.
Yeah, those are fun.
Like, we have VR now, so, like, we could put more of them on there, right?
Oh, that's a good point.
I would love more rhythm music games.
Yeah. What is the most random nerdy thing about you?
I think I already said it, but it might be meeting my wife by writing fanfiction.
I know, that's so, like, I love that. So wait, so did she write fanfiction too?
Yes. So I was in college. I was 18. It was 2001. And I wanted to join this Gundam Wing mailing list, but you had to be 18 because they had like explicit content. So I waited till I was 18, and then I asked to
waited?
join. I did.
Oh,
I didn't lie about my age. I was honest. I was like, okay, I'll come back when I'm 18.
Oh my God. I think that's like, you're the only person who was honest with that.
I'm a Cancer. But like I joined the list, and we started talking, and we were writing fics together. We wrote a fic that was Resident Evil crossed over with Gundam Wing, It still exists. She still posts the link on our anniversary.
Oh.
But while we were we were writing the fic together, and I went to college at Iowa State, and she went to college at in St. Cloud here in Minnesota, and we were talking one day, and she was saying that there was a girl in her class she had a crush on. Like, she was open about being like gay, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And when we got done talking, I realized I felt jealous about that. And I was like, oh my God, I like her. And then I had a full blown panic attack because I was like, I can't like girls that would make me gay. And then I stopped talking to her for a while. And then I was like, oh, but I really miss writing fic together. And we would like role play as the characters and stuff too. So I finally messaged her and I was like, okay, I stopped talking to you because I like you.
Aww.
And she was like, initially she was like, we should be friends for a bit longer because we were long distance internet. But then she was like, well, okay, I like you too. And then we met in person a year later at Anime Central, which is like a anime convention in like the Chicago area. And she introduced me to cosplay, which is also like a big nerdy part of my life. Cause I didn't know that was a thing either until I went to a convention and saw people dressed up as the characters. And I was like, what is this? And she's like, oh, it's cosplay. She introduced me to cosplay. She wrote fic with me. She introduced me to, because I was writing fic of characters who were gay, and she was like, there's actual gay anime and manga. And I was like, there is? And she's like, yeah, I can send you some. So she was also the one who would send me the actual gay content that was in anime, because I didn't know that was a thing, and because I was watching all sorts of anime, but a lot of the like gay stuff was like cut out or wasn't here.
Oh, that's awful.
And she was like, I can send you. So she would burn CDs.
Oh, wow. Burning CDs. I haven't heard that phrase in so long.
I know. And I think each CD would fit maybe like 2 episodes because this was like way back in the day.
Wow.
And so she would send me all the like stuff. And so we started dating. Then when I graduated college, I moved in with her up here in Minnesota, and we've been together ever since. We got married in 2019, and that's the most random story ever, is that we were writing fic together, and then we fell in love, and now we're married.
Oh, that's so cute.
And she posts the fic every anniversary, and I always talk to people about it too. It's like, yeah, I met my wife through fanfiction.
She posts the one that you wrote together?
Yes, she does. Every October, she posts the link, and she's like, it's that time of year. And I look at it, and I can't make it past like the first couple of sentences.
I was going to ask, do you read it?
I try, and I'm like, oh God, who is that person writing? Who is that girl?
Yeah.
Oh. But it's also kind of like yeah, I mean, I still love that girl, because if she wouldn't have been writing fic, I don't think I would have been writing as much as I do now. So
yeah,
I love that girl, but she's embarrassing a little bit, but it's okay. It's fine.
So tell me about your journey into fandom, and I'm so curious how you landed that role at Crunchyroll.
Over the years, like, because I love writing, and I discovered that you could write pop culture pieces for places, and I would do freelance writing at a whole bunch of places. And for a while, I was writing freelance for Funimation before Funimation and Crunchyroll came together. And that was on a whim. Like, their editor posted like a pitch call for something. So I was like, I'm going to send an idea and see what happens. And he liked it. And so I started writing freelance for them every now and then. And then I ended up working at the Mary Sue in 2021. And so I was like, I can't really write freelance anymore because I work here now and that's full time. And he's like, cool, that's fine. We're going to miss your work. If we ever have a full-time thing or whatever, I'll talk to you about it. I'll let you know, because I would love for you to work with me full time one day. And I'm like, cool. Didn't think anything of it. It's just like, okay, cool, whatever. And so in 2022, when they came together with Crunchyroll, they posted an opening for like the senior features editor position. And he let me know that the opening was, because he still remembered me.
You made an impression.
Yeah, and at that time, since I was working at the Mary Sue, I would occasionally write anime stuff. And because I was trying to build up their anime section, and I was working with like the PR people for like Funimation and stuff. Like, they would send me like, oh, here's an announcement if you want to cover it. I'm like, yeah, yes, I love anime. I will cover it. And I do interviews and stuff with voice actors and everything. And so the opening went up, and I was like, I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to apply and see what happens. And then I ended up getting the job. So I left the Mary Sue and ended up working at Crunchyroll in 2022. And I've been there since then. And it was completely, totally because I tried. I was like, I'm just going to, the worst they can do is say no.
Yeah.
Like, no, we don't want your pitch, or no, we're not looking for this right now. But it worked out. And I'd been writing freelance for a while, so I had a portfolio of examples of things I'd written and things I've written about. And since I was writing for the Mary Sue, I was writing like every day. So I had a whole bunch of like like examples of things I had written. And like I said, I never imagined, like, I've always wanted to be a writer, which I thought meant like you write books, because that's what I wanted to do. I want to write books, which I am doing. But I never knew there was like a person that writes like all your favorite pop culture things, like all your pop culture bits and pieces, or here's a really cool fandom article from this magazine or this website. And I was like, oh, I could do that. That could be a thing I do.
Yeah.
But like at the time when I said I wanted to be a writer as a kid, I had no idea that was a thing. And then getting older, like after college, I still really had no idea. But at the time, I think it was like Anime News Network that had a calling in like 2006. And I was like, okay, I didn't know that was a thing, but I'll give it a shot. So I think everything I've done is just me being like, I'll give it a shot. Like I'll try and see what happens, and if it works, awesome. If it doesn't, I'll try something else. And that led to me working at Crunchyroll, and that also lets me ended up getting the book deals I have, because the manga guide was because someone approached me to write essays for an anime guide, and the people who made the anime guide wanted to make a manga guide, and they're like, do you just want to write the manga guide? And I was like, yeah. I would love to. And even like the fantasy pen world was, somebody reached out to me because they saw my work and they were like, we think you might really like writing this story. And they gave me like the initial idea, and I just took it and like ran with it. I was like, here's the characters I want to do, here's the plot, here's the everything. So yeah, that's basically my fandom journey. And it's wild to think that it's like a job now.
I know,
because fandom and entertainment's always been this thing that people have been like, it's just entertainment, or like it's just a phase, it's gonna go away. It's not really a thing that you do as like a career. It's like, but it is, and it can be if you want it to be. But back then when I was like, even just saying I wanted to be a writer, they're like, that's not really a job, that's not a real job. And I'm like, oh. And so I stopped for a while, and then I realized, I like writing too much. This has to be my job. I have to make this work somehow. I can't imagine doing anything else with my life but writing. And I think that also taught me to like be open to other possibilities, because never in my plan was, working for anime website. That was never part of the plan at all. Like, even as much as I loved anime and manga as I watched it growing up, that was never in my thought process that I would be in the industry in any way whatsoever. It's like, it's just going to be my fun, and that's it. It's like, well, just be open, because you never know, one day someone might have a thing that you see like an opening for. You're like, actually, that does sound kind of fun. That sounds like something I would like to do. So I'm just going to go for it.
Yeah. So in your work, have you ever met any celebrities or people that you could never have dreamed you'd spoken to? And like, have you ever had any like fan moments?
Oh God. Yes.
Ooh, let's hear them.
Oh my gosh. So I feel like my mom always says this thing where she's like, I never want you to lose that fan moment that you have, even if you're like doing things that get you in these places.
Be starstruck. Yes.
Yes. Still find the joy in what you're doing. Like I've run into like voice actors who I love, where I'm like, you are the person who is the character I love, and I will like see them and meet them. And I think a recent example was I wrote, what did I write? I'm trying to remember what I wrote for Crunchyroll. Oh, I wrote about an anime called Cherry Magic, and it's a queer anime, and I wrote about like how great it was and how much I loved it. And a voice actor named Brandon McInnes retweeted that article, and I was like, oh my gosh, thank you for retweeting it. That's great, because I really love his work, because he does a lot of cool voice acting work. He was in an anime called Given, which I love to pieces, and I've told him like 1,000 times, like, I love this anime, I love your performance. It's helped me a lot watching that anime with like dealing with grief and stuff and everything like that. But he retweeted that article. And he responded, and he was like, I love your writing. Congratulations on your book. And I was like, I was not aware that you were reading my writing. Like,
No.
I was not aware that you were a fan. Like, what?
That's so cool.
And I'm like, I've done interviews with him before, but I still had that moment. It's like, I've spoken with you. We've met in person. And like, I've talked with you. But when he was like, I am a fan of what you do, I was like, oh my God.
That's so beautiful. Oh my gosh.
And like when that happens with people who I respect so much in like this space I'm in, even if I've talked with them before, I'm just like, me? Like, really? And that's happened a couple of times in anime spaces, and I'm just like, oh, like even if like we follow each other on Twitter, we've talked before, we've spoken, we've sat down together, but I still have that moment where if someone says they respect like my work, because it's like, I respect your work, like your work is what inspires people like me to put out our work, and knowing that like you're paying attention to what I'm doing is amazing. And even like I had this moment too, and I don't know if it's like a fan girl moment, but when I told my coworkers, I was like, oh, I have a book coming out, they all pre-ordered it. I was just like, what? And they're like, well, yeah, of course, we like your writing.
That's amazing.
Also, we like, and I'm like, they're extremely supportive of everything, and I'm like, just having that, knowing that you have that type of support with what you do, is those are the moments where I'm just like, oh man. And even like the other day, my wife's like, I read your article, I really like your writing.
You know, it's such a good point that you bring up, though. You know, yes, you're writing about these other things that everybody is a fan of, but if you think about it, I'm thinking about me as a fan, I'll watch something or I'll read something, and then I'll just like go on social media, I'll go to Google, I'll go to all these different websites, and a lot of the theories I'm reading, the articles, like I probably consume just as much stuff outside of the actual work as wait, does that make sense? So like I'll read probably just as much stuff as the actual like work of art that I was invested in. Like the fandom created stuff, the fan created stuff is equal to me. Like I think the communities and what they create is just as important and valuable.
Yeah, I don't think they realize it. I don't think like fandom community realizes how like impactful they are, and that people pay attention. Like people notice when people talk about, because I am writing like books and things, and people are like, what's something you want to come out of doing this? And I'm like, I want a fandom. I want a fandom of my work. Like,
yes.
And it's so funny because I've heard other authors or like other creators have like the thing they want to come out of things, you know, like fame, fortune, blah, blah. It's like, I want to wake up one day and to like go on Twitter and see like GIF reacts of my characters, or like, you know, someone's like, I just finished this first volume of what Bree wrote, and here's what I think is going to happen. I want those fan theories. I want fanfic. I want fanfic really bad. I'm like,
love this.
Tell me your ships. Tell me who you ship. Like, I want all of that. Like, I think for a while there was like this fear people had of like, oh God, creators, if they find out that people do this in fandom, like a lot of creators want that, because I think if you have like, fandom is the sign that your work has touched people.
Ooh.
Like that's the sign.
True. Like, I love that.
It's like people taking the time to make something out of your creation. That's a huge compliment. I've had like 2 times I've had people cosplay 2 of the characters I wrote for like a Magic Girl book I had, and I was at a convention, and I'll never forget this. I was at a convention with like the book, and this girl walked up dressed as one of the characters, and she was like, I'm so sorry, I couldn't figure out how to like do the skirt or whatever. And I just started crying. I was crying so loud that the people around me could hear. And I was like, you don't understand, this is my character, in front of me. And we took pictures, and I found out that girl had messaged my wife and was like, can you send me reference pictures? So my wife knew it was going to happen. But I was like, this is what I want. This is the goal. This is the dream. Like, I want, like, besides, yes, I want like the animated series and the toys and the movie and the red carpet. I want all of that, but I want a fandom.
Love that.
I want to like go to like AO3 and be like, oh, there's a category for my book. Like, that would be so cool. Like, oh, there's a category, there's pairings, there's like deep dives. Like, I've even told the guy I work with at Crunchyroll, I suppose he's like a manager or something. I was like, I want to reach the point where you guys do an interview about me because of the thing I made.
I love this.
He was like, I want nothing more than to have that moment where we're like, here's her top 10 like anime fans.
Oh my God, I love that. I love your honesty right now because that's so true. Yes.
It's like, and I'm like, that's what I want. Like, I want my work to touch people in that kind of way where they're like, I'm going to write a fic. I'm going to draw some fan art. I'm going to do some cosplay and it happens sometimes. Like I have people come up to me like at a table or something. And every time without fail, I'm like, ah! And it's like, and my mom's like, I don't want you to lose that. Yeah. That's what I don't want you to lose. I want you to always be passionate about it. And it's like I wrote the manga book and they're like, expert on manga. And I'm like, what, me? And they're like, yes, you consume this regularly and you work in the industry. Yeah. You kind of do know what you're talking about. And I'm like, I think I still feel 10, like a 10-year-old. What a dream. So it never like crosses my mind. Like, I'm just like, oh yeah, I work at Crunchyroll. And they're like, what? And I'm like, oh yeah,
that's huge. I told you, my husband, he's like Crunchyroll because he's like, that's where he watches all his anime.
Yeah. And I'm like, but in my 10-year-old girl brain, that's constantly like dreaming of something like more, which just, it makes me like try and stop and look at what's happening now. I think a lot of us, when we're talking about like our dreams and our goals, we're like the future. And it's like, well, what are you doing now? What you're doing now is pretty great.
Yeah, like, that's true.
What you're doing now is something you love. This also counts. This moment counts right now. But yeah, I think what I want more than the world is like a fandom. I really want one.
I'm going to be honest. I want a fandom for this podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Like you want that. And it's like not just the like people that are like, oh my God, I love your work. Cause that's amazing. I will always value that. But like just the day where I like open my social media app of choice and it's just like, I just watched season 1, episode 3 of this, and here are my feelings. And it's like, that's about me. Like, that's about something I made. That's what I want. I've had people, and they thought I was joking. So it's like, I want to know your ships. Tell me who you ship. And I'm if you write fic, tell me. And like, how? Like, no, seriously. Like, like I'm all for like ships and everything of everything that I create. Like, yes, please. Like, I want all of that. It's the thing that brings me joy. So I'm like, I want to have that as well. I mean, I'd probably cry every time I see a fic or something, but it would be cool.
What does being a nerd mean to you?
For me personally, it means being myself.
Yep.
It means that I am embracing who I am because I'm a nerd. And like, I've always been a nerd, like in some way, shape, or form. And it's funny because I've had conversations with my mom about this, and she's always like, I wonder where you got this from. But I had like nerdy parents, and they just didn't really realize. Like my dad collected comic books. They didn't. Yeah, but they didn't really call it like being a nerd. Yeah. They're just like, oh, I just really like this thing, so I buy it. And my mom's like, you're really into video games. I was like, well, I didn't get introduced to video games until you and my dad. Like my dad had an Atari, my mom bought a Nintendo, she bought me a Super Nintendo, and my mom's always, it's so funny because I think in her head it doesn't process as nerd, it processes as I'm enjoying the thing I like.
Yeah.
She doesn't really label it as being a nerd. But one of my favorite memories with her is because my parents were divorced, so I went to her house for the weekend. And I don't know how we started talking about Star Wars, but I was like, I don't know what that is. I was like 12, 11 at the time. And I was like, what's Star Wars? And she was like, what's Star Wars? And I'm like, yeah, what's Star Wars? So she pulled out her VHS tapes and we sat down and we had a picnic indoors and watched the episodes 4, 5, and 6 in one shot. And I told her, I was like, that's nerdy, Mom. But it doesn't process because she's like, I just want to share this thing I like with you. And I didn't know there was a name for that, but when I was writing like the manga book, I was like, oh, that's fandom. You were sharing fandom with me. But she didn't realize it. She was just sharing like the thing that she loves. So I think being a nerd means like embracing yourself and sharing it with other people in like a positive way that encourages them to partake in it with you. That's what nerdiness is to me, because a lot of the people I'm close to are also nerdy, and that's what we do. Like when we get together, we watch K-dramas, we watch anime, we watch whatever movie. We do this thing with friends called Summer Summit, where over the summer we go to their house and we just watch movies and play video games for a week. And they have this really cool giant theater room. We just sit in there. I think last time we did Summer Summit, we watched Sandman together because somebody introduced us to a new show, and then someone brings a new video game, and I don't remember what the video game was because I know we've already played Overcooked and stuff, but it's like a routine, and somebody is the one who recommends where we go eat, and this is what we do, and it's just a part of my life, and I can't imagine not doing it because this is the way we all communicate with each other. And the best example of that was like when Animal Crossing came out in 2020. I had never played an Animal Crossing game. I was like, it's not my type of game. But I missed all my friends and they were all playing Animal Crossing. So I got Animal Crossing and sunk in like 500 hours. And now I love Animal Crossing. But every night at 7 p.m., we would visit each other's islands. And that's how we all got together. So it was like nerdiness was being ourselves, also communicating with each other, because that's how we speak. That's the language we speak to each other is we speak nerd.
Oh, I love that.
I was telling someone even today, I was like, the way I talk to my wife is if I see something online that I know she'll like from like a show, I send it to her. And we spend the day messaging each other like tweets. And it's like, here's this meme I know you'll like. Here's this fan art of this character I know you like. And we don't even really say anything. We just send each other the pictures. And
that's your language.
That's our like. Before bed, we're sending each other TikToks. Or we're laying in bed and she just turns the phone so I can see a TikTok she's watching.
I love it.
And
your love language is sharing nerdy things with each other.
it is. That is the language we speak. And it's been like that for 20 some years.
Love it.
And it has not changed.
Are you ready to get into our geeky recommendations?
Oh boy. Yes. Yes, I am.
So for today's geeky recommendation, I'm going to recommend checking out Crunchyroll, of course. So check it out. It's a streaming service where you can watch anime, read articles. There's so much cool stuff on there. Even if you don't think you're a fan of anime, go check it out and see. You never know what you might find.
I like that. I like that a lot. Not for biased reasons.
I know, right?
I would recommend, because I am writing a manga book, and my theory is that like there's a manga for every type of nerd, and like it has 1,001 genres. I would recommend, if there is a genre of story you're looking for, to look for a manga that fits that genre.
Oh, I love that.
Because you are guaranteed to have a fantastic time. There's so many options. That might be our geeky recommendation. Read manga.
I love that. That's a good one.
That sounds so silly.
No, it doesn't.
I think that's also, I think I would probably add to that, like, because a lot of conversation with nerdy stuff, I would like to remind people that everybody's a nerd about something.
Yep.
It's not all like the type of nerds we talk about. It's like everybody has a thing they're nerdy about. And there's always a way to connect with someone about a thing. I feel like a good example is my mom. My mom is not into anime and manga, so we don't nerd out about that, but we do nerd out about Marvel. Lately, she's been nerding out with my wife about cooking recipes. My wife has gotten into cooking lately, and my mom and her have become cooking buddies.
That's so cute.
And for some reason, I'm in the group chat too, so I just see the messages back and forth of them sending each other like messages. So that is the thing. My wife nerds out with my mom about. I nerd out with my mom about like all things Marvel or whatever, because we were nerding out about X-Men recently because she started watching it. But yeah, everybody's a nerd about something. It's just a matter of like finding out what that thing is and just like encouraging them to nerd out about it. One of the like saddest things I think that happens is someone nerding out about something and then they stop themselves because they think they're doing it too much. And it's like, no, I want to hear the nerdy thing. Like it's good to nerd out and have that space to nerd out in. So
I totally agree.
I think that my last bit would be like, everybody's a nerd about something. There's a fandom for everything. Everything has a fandom. It's fantastic. And I always forget because fandom for me is primarily anime and manga. But fandom is everywhere. Like everything has fandom somewhere. Like all I have to do is remind it whenever like Beyonce has a concert going on, and it's like, that's a fandom. That is a very passionate fandom that I am baby steps into, not like super like hardcore into, but I'm like watching them react to like someone like her. I'm like, that's a fandom.
Oh, for sure.
That is a fandom. Like, the Beehive is a fandom. So everybody has a fandom. And it's just a matter of making them feel like it's okay to be in a fandom. There's no reason to, like, shame anybody for being in fandom. I never understand shaming someone for enjoying a thing. If it makes them feel happy, especially in, like, the times we live in. Like, if that gives you joy, by all means, give yourself some joy. We all need it, so...
There is a fandom for everything, and you're going to have your huge fandom, and I'm so excited to see it happen.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Thank you so much for being here today. It was so much fun hearing all of your stories, hearing how fandom has really influenced your life, and just like how you've used it to form such meaningful relationships and connections, and now you're doing what you love. Like, I think it's very inspiring.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's not something I realized right away either. It's usually when I have conversations like this where I'm like, wow, it is a big part of my life.
Yeah. Where can people find you and your work?
My website, I'm laughing because of the name. My website is Bree Should Be Writing.
I love it.
Which has all of my work on it. Otherwise, I'm Bree Chibi Tweets on Twitter and just Bree Chibi on Instagram and TikTok.
Awesome. And can people get your books from your website? Do you have links to your books?
Yeah.
They're perfect. And I'll share all of that in the show notes.
Awesome.
Cool. Thank you again for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for listening. And please be sure that you are following the show in your favorite podcast app so that you never miss an episode. And please, I would love it so much if you could leave a 5-star rating and review in either Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if you're watching this episode on YouTube, please be sure to subscribe and like this video. You can get in touch with me via email at thatnerdthingpod@gmail.com. And you can follow the show on Instagram and TikTok at thatnerdthingpod. And I will see you next time.